And now the answers to the previous episode's trivia questions. Who piloted the Rebel blockade runner?
Our last master was Captain Antilles.
What are the Sand People's weapons called?
Gaffy sticks.
The Mos Eisley Cantina was filled with disreputable characters. One of them tried to start a fight with Luke. In how many systems did he say he carried the death sentence?
I have the death sentence on 12 systems.
Hello, and welcome to A Star Wars Fan Reads Bantha Tracks. This is Bantha Tracks issue number 6. Ooh, and this one has an interview with Harrison Ford. So let's learn a little bit more about Harrison Ford, aka Han Solo. On October 18, we went to Harrison Ford's home in the hills above Los Angeles. During our conversation, we discussed his start in motion pictures, his feelings towards his associates on Star Wars and The Empire Strikes Back, and his hopes for the future. Below are excerpts from that conversation. How much acting had you done before Star Wars? I had done very little stage work. I had done a season in summer stock and 1 or 2 plays after that. That was my total stage experience. In 7 or 8 or 10 years, I had been in the business before I did Star Wars. I had done mostly TV, some film, but I had been in about 6 pictures, had done quite a bit of TV. I stopped doing TV before I started to do Star Wars because I was afraid I'd use up my welcome and get typecast in the same kind of role I was always being offered on TV. What kind of role was that? I was either the sensitive brother or the bank robbing brother or the business brother or any kind of sensitive brother. Or the guy that didn't do it. The guy they think at the beginning did it. In TV, it works this way. They leave the scene at the beginning where they think you did it. They come and accuse you and say, I didn't do it. They go away. Then they come back just before the first commercial and say, tell us the story again. You tell them a little bit and say, honest to God, I didn't do it. And then they have a commercial. They come back to you until the end and they say, you didn't do it. You did American Graffiti for George Lucas, playing the role of Bob Falfa. Did he call you again for Star Wars, or how did you get the Han Solo part? I made no effort because George had let it be known to the agents that he wasn't going to use anybody he used in American Graffiti. So I didn't think about it. I didn't enter into the picture until about 3 or 4 weeks before they were due to make the decision. I was asked to do a videotape test, which I did, and then they asked me to help them with other people's videotape tests. It seems like I must have done 75. Then I was told they wanted me to do the part, and that was it. I didn't even have a script. When you made Star Wars, what did you think of the film and the part you were taking? I thought it was a real good part. The character was humorous, and I thought that those things that weren't exactly funny in the script probably would be, I thought it was going to be funny. I didn't think it was going to have such a wide audience. It was just a good part for me. I never tried to judge whether this was going to be successful or whether people would like it. For me, it was a simple opportunity to play a character that I knew the audience would like. It was the first time a character I had played was so important to the film. It was necessary that this character worked, as necessary for them as it was for me. So that opens up a kind of atmosphere, a good environment for collaboration.
Nagamaru!
It's the Star Wars Creature Cantina that you put together. Action figures each sold separately. You can make them move on revolving discs with the action lever. You can even make them fall.
Gotcha, Hammerhead! Got him. I told you not to follow me, Guido. You owe us money, Han Solo. You're not going to collect this time. Wow, what a weird place.
Kenner's new Star Wars Creature Cantina. Action figures sold separately.
How did you actually get into movies? When I first came out here, I wanted to be in movies. I came out here to be in movies, but I didn't even know what the names of the major motion picture studios were. We stopped in Laguna Beach where we saw the ocean for the first time and rented an apartment. It was close enough to Los Angeles to get a little grub steak. We had taken a month to go across the country, so it was a good rest spot. I did a play in Laguna Beach, John Brown's Body, and somebody, a man named E.M. Bernard, who was doing the music to that play, was also doing the music for Laugh-In and had some link to Columbia Pictures. He asked me if I would like to meet the guy who was head of casting for Columbia. I said, sure, why not? It was the first time I had ever been in a movie studio. I went into this huge paneled office, and there was this guy talking on two phones, and another guy behind him on another two phones. Literally, I sat in a straight back chair for about 10 minutes while they talked big bucks, big names. They kept switching from one phone to another, covering one mouthpiece, then the other mouthpiece, and shouting back and forth, just like in the movies. I thought they were probably doing it for my benefit. I couldn't imagine how life could so imitate the movies. But sure enough, it was for real, and finally the first guy finishes up and turns to me and says, "What's your name?" I said, "Harrison Ford." He said, "Who sent you?" I said, "Ian Bernard." He asked the guy behind him who Ian Bernard was, and the other guy says, "Never heard of him." He said, "How tall are you?" 6'1", 6'0". How much you weigh? 190? Now he's giving me a little 3x5 card to put the information on. Do you ride a horse? Any other special hobbies, talents, etc.? Finally. Thanks, we'll see ya. I walked out, went down the hall to the elevators, realized I had to use the bathroom. I went to the bathroom, and when I came out, his assistant is coming down the hall saying to me, "Come back, he wants to talk to you." If I'd gone to the elevator, I would have been gone, and nobody would have bothered to chase me. When I went back, the first thing the guy says is, "How'd you like to be on a contract?" I said, "How much?" The guy says, "7-year contract for $150 a week." It wasn't great, but it was my introduction. I had been in California for 6 months. I wanted to be an actor, and all of a sudden, I were one. I was working as a carpenter most of the time and was only given occasional acting jobs that I thought would put me in good stead career-wise. I just wanted to be in good movies. I didn't care if I did small parts as long as good movies. I figured that would be the best way for me to learn to act, since being in bad movies didn't teach you much except to be calm under fire. That's only the first step. It's nice to be in good movies, working with good people, so that's what I decided to do, figuring that nobody would realize that I wasn't making very much money, and they'd just see me occasionally in good movies. I would be paying my dues, bidding my time, putting food on the table in a less demeaning way than was available to me in acting. I also would begin to be something other than an out-of-work actor, which is great. There's nothing wrong with being an out-of-work actor, but if it's the only thing that's happening in your life, you begin to accept that as what you are, as a definition of what you do. You make a much more attractive employee if you have something else going on other than me, which is usually judged to be an embarrassment. Is science fiction a genre you were familiar with prior to this? No experience with it, but I didn't find it any problem to imagine it. I was always keyed into the human context of the relationship. It wasn't as apparent to some audiences as it was to me that was an important element, but that doesn't matter. It's a necessary foundation for fantasy to have some approach to it, some way of keying yourself into it, some accessible characters, but it's a very skillful conception, and I found it no trouble to deal with. How would you compare that with your work on Empire? The first one was a cakewalk compared to the second one. The second one was much more difficult. Was that because of the story or the people involved or what? The relationships become more significant. The points that need to be brought across become more subtle. The first time, a great deal of energy was expended to establish a context for a relatively small story, heavily plotted, really articulately contrived, very fast moving with lots and lots of information, and all kinds of things having to be established. It took a lot of energy and a lot of time. But the second time you come back, all of that is done for you. You can pretty much think that everyone who will see this second one has seen the first one. So they know who they are dealing with, and you just walk on and start doing the story. But I think it had to be a lot more interesting than the first one because people were aware of who you were and what you were doing. They got a chance to look at you at a little closer. You had to bear up under scrutiny. It had to be more complex. The characterizations had to be more complex. I felt a sense of responsibility for making it better. I mean, you get a chance to do it over again. The only reason you do it is to do it better. If you can't do it better, it's boring. My part was more interesting this time, so I enjoyed myself a lot more this time. The first time was a lot of fun, but this time I enjoyed the work, even though it was more difficult. What do you see for yourself for the future in terms of roles and career? I just like to continue doing interesting work. I don't have much of a forward view. I don't anticipate the future too much. Right now, I'm enjoying a rest. I don't know what's going to be available when I'm rested, and so I don't equip myself with any kind of predisposition. That could as well be disappointed as not. I don't think about that at all. I would like to do what I'm doing for as long as I can, making a living at it and not go totally bats. That's my ambition. How about some Star Wars trivia? How much did Obi-Wan Kenobi offer to pay Han Solo for transportation to Alderaan? What was the new model of landspeeder that had come out and lessened the value of Luke's landspeeder? While still on Tatooine, how far does Luke offer to take Obi-Wan Kenobi? The answers to these trivia questions will be given on the next video. If you don't know the answers, that's okay. Just go see Star Wars again. Or ask a friend who's seen it a lot. Because how else would you get the answers? There's another questions and answer section in Bantha Tracks. Let's check out what they are. Where can I write to members of the cast and crew of Star Wars? For various reasons, we can't give out the addresses of the cast and crew members. However, if you want to write them, you can address your letter to that person in care of the official Star Wars fan club at the address given above. We can't promise an answer, but we can promise that the person you write will receive the letter. Is there any way to get a copy of the script to Star Wars? This month, Ballantine Books will be publishing a book called The Art of Star Wars. The book contains the entire script and hundreds of black and white and color illustrations, including preliminary concept drawings, finished production paintings, costume sketches, photographs, and storyboards of action sequences. Also included are reproductions of posters used to advertise Star Wars from around the world, a selection of cartoons, comic strips, and spin-off art, and artwork sent in by some of the film's youngest fans. How many different miniatures were built for Star Wars? According to Grant McCune, chief model maker on Star Wars, there were 24 different types of miniatures designed. More than one of some of these were required, so there were over 70 miniatures actually built from the 24 designs. These include space vehicles such as the X-Wing fighters, 14 models, Y-Wing fighters, 8 models, and TIE fighters, 20 models. Surface vehicles such as the Jawa's Sandcrawler, 1 model, and Luke's Landspeeder, 2 models. And detailed sections of the Death Star, such as the trench, the target area, gun towers, and the docking bay. The scale on the models range from 1/8 on the Live Pod and Live Pod Bay to 1/16 for most of the space vehicles to an incredible 1/180,000th for the Death Star, making a full-size Death Star 102 plus miles in diameter. Question! When will The Empire Strikes Back be released? Answer! The world premiere of The Empire Strikes Back will take place in London, England on 17th May 1980. The United States premiere will be in Washington, D.C. on 18th May 1980. The film will open nationwide in both countries starting on 21 May 1980 and will spread to the rest of the world throughout the summer. Yes! Star Wars again! Alright, it's The Empire Strikes Back Progress Report. In mid-September, principal photography on The Empire Strikes Back was completed at the EMI Elstree Studios outside of London. The Millennium Falcon was dismantled and placed in storage to await its resurrection in Star Wars 3? The Ice Cave and Bespin, the Cloud City, are now gone, but they will live again when The Empire Strikes Back opens nationwide on May 21, 1980. All the actors are home now and resting after a grueling 5-month shooting schedule. Mark Hamill is spending time with his wife and newborn son. Harrison Ford is remodeling his home in Beverly Hills. Carrie Fisher is once again before the cameras, this time appearing in the Blues Brothers movie. For director John Landis, Billy D. Williams is involved in various projects. All will soon be preparing for extensive personal appearance tours on Empire beginning early next year. Information on these appearances will be announced in future issues of Bantha Tracks when it becomes available. This is awesome! That is issue number 6 of Bantha Tracks. Thanks for watching, and may the force be with you.